Hi guys, Non-Stop Recaps here. Today I will recap a movie called Plastic. Spoiler alert. At the beginning of the film there are 5 teenage children named Sam, a student who happens to be in a class with his friend named Frankie. Then there's another one called 40. Then Yatesey, an unemployed man, and Rafa, who works as a cashier in a convenience store. Apparently, Sam, 40, Yatesey and Rafa, the 4 of them have done a side job, that is by stealing credit cards or ATM cards by making clones or copies of their victims' cards. Yes, you can say they are hackers. And Rafa, who works as a mini-market cashier, it's very easy to get a victim. Then one night, Yatesey and Rafa did the stunt again by raiding someone who was doing steady in the cars. Then they robbed a victim's bag. While on his way home, Rafa then unpacked the contents of the bag, in which there was an amount of money and a tablet. Without them guessing, it turned out that the tablet was recording their faces. In the middle of their conversation, Yatesey said that the money they got was only shared together. But Rafa doesn't seem to agree with that, because usually everything they get is always divided for with his other friends. Then they both arrived in the house, where the house was used as a gathering place and stored the stolen goods. Then came the 40 Lightning with his strange costume, and he said that he was going to a party with Sam. At the party, Sam meets Frankie, his classmates. Frankie said he had landed a job at a credit card company. Then Sam asks for her phone number, but Frankie only gives her email address. The next day, Sam and 40 returned home. When I entered the house, they were surprised by their friends who had been tied up, and there were some strangers there. His name is Marcel, the old man they robbed, and 2 of his men. Then Marcel said that the bag that the old man had brought last night that they had robbed was his, in which there is sensitive data, such as important files and business accounts. And it turns out, the tablet they plundered already installed spyware, so the owner can easily remod it remotely, including tracking his location. Marcel also finds out what they're doing with credit card theft and identity fraud. Then Marcel makes a deal so that they get forgiveness from him, namely by giving the contents of the list of goods they have to collect and handing it over before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. After that conversation, Marcel and the others left. Because the list of items requested is so much, they are thinking of using all the cards they have. Then start working by buying and collecting all the goods using the money from the cards they have. After all gathered, Sam then called Marcel to arrange a meeting place. And they came somewhere to give them their things. Unexpectedly, Marcel said another statement. That is, they must give money worth $200,000 every week, until an unspecified time limit. If they don't want to, they will be in the hole they have prepared. Then Sam negotiates with Marcel. Marcel then said if they want to pay everything off, they have to pay $2 million and only be given 2 weeks. They agree with that. When going home, their car is also taken, so they have to walk. Arriving at their headquarters, then looking for a way to get the money in a short time. Then they wanted to get Frankie to join. Because Frankie works at a credit card company, of course the results that will be obtained later will be very large and not easily tracked. Sam then emailed Frankie to 40 to hack. Let them know about it. And from there they found out Frankie's father was seriously ill in the hospital and had a problem with the cost of. One night Sam meets Frankie and takes her to a cafe. There they talked. Sam said that his job so far is as a credit card breaking specialist. Frankie, who heard it, didn't seem to like it and was going from there. Then Sam makes up a story if his brother is very sick and costs a lot of money. Frankie, who has the same problem, finally wants to join his group. With a little deadly seduction of his land crocodile. Then Frankie arrives at headquarters and meets other friends. They then devised a plan. Their targets are cards that are commonly used to shop in large quantities. because using card cloning they must leave the London area to avoid suspicion of. Then they went to Miami, because there is a place that is commonly visited by card owners to shop with large amounts. They have 5 cloned cards that amount to $3.5 million. Starting with the first victim, he was a banker whose cards were $500,000. In order not to be caught if the original card and clone are used simultaneously, they must supervise the owner of the original card. Then 40 disguises himself to attach a tracker to the victim so that it can be monitored at any time, because it feels safe enough. They also use the clone card by shopping for luxury items that they will then sell again. After all was done, they were happy to go to a nightclub. But Sam instead did steadily in the room along with Frankie. Because of their lack of drink and the cash that they have exhausted, Yatesey unknowingly used the clone card to buy it. A moment later a burly man came up to them, and the action was caught. They ran away and there was a chase. But in the end they all got away. Sam then calls his friends to meet him below. Then Sam came and they told me what happened. That $1.5 million card would be a problem for them. The next day Rafa says he has another plan, to rob jewelry store Ahmed Ablam, which is estimated to be worth $20 million. They will take advantage of a prince from Brunei named Zafran who is expected to conduct an engagement. Then they rent a place opposite the jewelry store, so that it is easy to spy on it. Pretending to be the head of sales, Sam calls Mustafa Ryald's office. He is the prince's private secretary. When on the phone it turns out that the answer to the phone is his assistant who says that he is not in place. Sam later said he would personally show the prince his diamond collection to use on his engagement, but he denied that the engagement would not necessarily be held. Then Sam pretended to be Mustafa Ryald to call the jewelry office Ahmed Ablam, and talk to someone named Dawson. He is the store's head of international sales. Sam said that Prince Zafran will hold a private engagement and will see his jewelry collection. Sam also said he would have a meeting with him in London and Dawson agreed to it. Dawson looks very happy about it. The next day they prepare all the vehicles that they will use to do the action, including the royal jet that had been promised to pick up Dawson and deliver him to London. After it's all over, Sam suddenly gets a call from Marcel who collects his debt and he has also sent his men there. It turns out that his men are already with Frankie there. Sam who saw him running straight towards them. Marcel's men then threatened and said if they didn't get the money in 3 days something bad would happen to them. Hearing this, Frankie, who from the beginning did not know anything, looks very angry, then goes and leaves Sam. Frankie then meets his friends to hear an explanation from them about Marcel and what really happened. Then Rafa said they had a debt on Marcel of $2 million. Then Sam comes and looks. Frankie is very angry at him, because he feels taken advantage of. In the midst of their debate, Yatesey with his annoying behavior continues to gang up Frankie until he finally leaves and leaves them all. After Frankie goes, look like Sam is so angry at her Yatesey, but it can be soothed by 40 and explain if they need it on their next plan. The day Sam and his friends will do it. They leave by commercial plane and Dawson on a private jet they booked to meet in London. Arriving at Londo, Dawson appears to be with his assistant and several bodyguards carrying jewelry in a suitcase down from the plane. On the other hand, Sam is seen preparing his undercover action. Then they meet at a hotel. Sam, who had disguised himself as Mustafa Ryald, immediately invited him to meet the fake prince who had been waiting for him in the car. As we know, it is not the real prince but Rafa who has disguised himself. Then they asked to show and take the suitcase with the prince to a place with Dawson following him from behind. But previously the suitcase was opened by Sam to make sure the contents. Dawson was also warned by his assistant not to remove his suitcase without an escort. But Dawson instead says it's your boss's business assistant knows what. Then they all left. Sam with 40 acts as a bodyguard using a different car. Then followed by the prince's limousine and Dawson's car, and his bodyguards follow behind him. In the middle of the journey Dawson's car was separated from the group because of the red lights. A panicked Dawson then chased the group by running. At that time Sam then called Yatesey, who was ready to replace the limousine used by the prince, so that they had a gap to secure the suitcase. Then it's back to Dawson and his men, who saw the car of the group that was still waiting for him, and it relieved him. Then they continue their journey at an intersection where Sam and 40 suddenly take a different direction, while Dawson was still following his limousine. At that time, the fake prince will call Yatesey, but it turns out that his phone is low. Then tell the driver to stop and lend him his phone. Rafa calls Yatesey for a meeting, but Yatesey instead says he plans to master the jewelry by sharing it between the two of them. Rafa, who heard it, had disagreed with it. But because it was influenced by Yatesey, Rafa then obeyed him. Then Rafa returns the driver's phone and goes on foot. Yatesey, who was still followed by Dawson, suddenly turned at the intersection, which then stopped, and when checked it turned out that there was no one there. Dawson could only cry, sobbing because he had just been cheated. Then Sam calls Yatesey to arrange his meeting, but Yatesey instead says he will sell the jewelry with buyers who are waiting for him. He also said that he no longer cared about his debt to Marcel and that it was Sam's business. Sam, who heard it, seemed very upset, but it turned out that Sam had installed a tracker on the suitcase just in case. With clues from the device they catch up with Yatesey and Rafa, who are known to be in a hotel. In the middle of his way to the hotel, Sam calls Marcel, who turns out Frankie is with them, and if he does not immediately hand over the money then Frankie will be threatened with rape by his men. Then Sam will take his own money in a hotel where Yatesey and Rafa are carrying his jewelry. At the same time Dawson reported on the loss of his $20 million worth of jewelry. There were several people, including the driver who was hired by Rafa Tati. The driver said that the prince had borrowed his phone to call someone and the number was still on the phone. The police easily tracked him down. Then when Yatesey and Rafa were in the hotel room, the buyer and his bodyguard came. Marcel arrived at the hotel. Without Marcel realizing, there was already Sam and 40 waiting for him. When Marcel and his men go to a hotel room, they approached Marcel's car and it turned out that there was an old man in the car. Sam taught him and told him to leave. Frankie, who was held in the trunk, was released and told to go home. Then they get in the car to wait for Marcel to return. Then it looks Yatesey, who was still in the process of buying and selling. Suddenly someone knocked on the door. When it opened it turned out to be Marcel and his men. Then there was a gunfire there. Yatesey and Rafa go into hiding to save themselves. Shortly thereafter, the police finally found out their location. Yatesey and Rafa, who listened to the sound of the police car outside, immediately went from there. Through the back door. Rafa, who's shot, struggled to run and Yatesey left Rafa behind and didn't help him. So Rafa caught the police chasing him. Yatesey, who was still carrying the suitcase, managed to get away with snatching the car of the person who was there. At the same time, Marcel, who was hit in the stomach, tried to escape and reached the parking lot. Then Marcel gets into the car that he doesn't realize is in the car already Sam and 40. Then they left. Not far from there their car collided at an intersection with the car used by Yatesey earlier. Marcel and Yatesey were killed. Sam and 40 are still safe, but Sam is struggling to get out. 40, who was able to get out of the car, helped get Sam out, but Sam refused. By looking at the GPS on his phone, Sam said if the jewelry was nearby in the car they hit. Then he told 40 to pick it up and leave him before the police arrived. Then 40 rushed away with the suitcase of jewelry before the police arrived. Then the police arrested Sam and put him in the car with Rafa. They didn't say much because Sam was very disappointed with his actions. 2 years later, Sam, who is just out of prison, and Rafa, who is still on parole, returns to the cashier. Frankie is seen with his new girlfriend. When his girlfriend leaves, suddenly someone leaves an envelope that turns out to contain jewelry. Looks like Frankie knew that the one who gave him was Sam. Then Sam is seen coming out of a place and immediately leaving with a 40. And after all the incident, the jewelry was never found again and the film was finished.